Hi, welcome and thank you for tuning in and listening to our community update video prior to our December 3rd meeting. We will have our regularly scheduled committee of the whole at 4 p.m. followed by our regular meeting at 7 p.m. I'm Julie Rogers, the Kalamazoo County Board Chair, and also over District 5, which represents Oshtemo, part of Alamo, and part of Kalamazoo Township. One of the critical things we'll be discussing at our next committee of the whole is the state budget process. There has been pretty much a stalemate in Lansing, and so we have several large items on the chopping block to the tune of, I believe, $1.2 million. So we will be having a robust discussion next week about potential cuts we may need to make should the state legislature continue to not find compromise. We hope that they will, and my understanding is they continue to have conversations. And we continue to make calls encouraging them to find what compromises they can to achieve solvency for all of the local municipalities. The Vice Chair and I have voluntarily suggested that several of the items the Board of Commissioners put forward in the budgeting process would be the first to be put on hold and or possibly cut for the first quarter next year. We think it's important for us to be leaders and put some of our projects first before we would have to make further cuts for Kalamazoo County government. It's a very serious matter and we hope that it will be resolved quickly. With that, I would like Commissioner Quinn from District 10 to talk a little bit about the refugee resettlement resolution he's bringing forward. Commissioner Quinn.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Rogers. Following our last regular meeting, I was informed by Portage Council members Reed and Urban that Portage had passed a resolution regarding the resettlement of refugees within the city of Portage and had authorized a letter to the State Department so stating. This administration's Executive Order 13888, euphemistically called on enhancing state and local involvement in refugee settlement, requires that any municipality which is willing to accept the resettlement of refugees within its boundaries give written consent to the State Department, and further that other levels of government, like Kalamazoo County and the state of Michigan, must do the same, and the deadline is fast approaching. It's in December. I will be introducing a resolution asking that the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners consent to resettling refugees within our county. And I believe this will be entirely within, entirely consistent with the resolution that was passed a few years ago, making Kalamazoo County a welcoming community. I have some family experience with resettling refugees. As many of you know, I served in the Peace Corps in Nicaragua in the late 70s. Married a school teacher there. And we came to the States. She was given a green card immediately, but a few years after, or a couple of years after we left, Nicaragua experienced a revolution. My mother-in-law had been the mayor of her town of Wasbaum and aligned with the previous government. One of her daughters took an accountant, took an administrative position with the revolutionaries. Both had to flee the country. My mother-in-law at gunpoint was ousted from her town. She and one of her minor daughters traveled by land up through Mexico and crossed into California without papers. She was admitted, and because her father had been a World War I veteran in the United States Army, she was able to obtain citizenship and lived a very productive life, passed away last year. Her daughter, that was working in an administrative capacity with the Revolutionaries as an accountant, apparently questioned some sorts of transactions that she observed and heard that she was slated for assassination. Well, she left the country too, and managed to get an airplane flight into the country. She settled in the United States, made a career change from accounting to nursing, and is still practicing that profession in the state of Washington. Regarding this executive order, my personal opinion is that it's just set up barriers to the resettlement of refugees, and it's blatantly an appeal, pandering to the most racist and bigoted elements of our society. I would do everything I could to help resettle refugees. People just don't understand what desperate situations people can be in when there are social upheavals. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Quinn. I look forward to having a robust discussion on this. I've had some personal experience myself with my church attempting to take in some refugees, and we had a lot of barriers this year as well. Finally, at the 7 p.m. meeting, I will be bringing forward a resolution on climate emergency. The Board of Commissioners at the last Committee of the Whole had a majority to support to move it forward, and so I look forward to reading that resolution regarding the climate emergency work. And please, I hope everyone has a safe and happy Thanksgiving, and for those of our military families and men and women serving overseas, thank you for your service.